Good day. My name is Guy Dankaz. I'm with Idea Connector, and today it gives me great pleasure to be with Deb Green. Deb has been selected as an entrepreneurial intern for our Blueprint for Success program. Deb is looking to start a business, and the business that she's looking to start is in human relations as well as diversity strategy, and it's called Corporate Cree Consulting. Welcome, Deb.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're quite welcome. Perhaps, Deb, you could give us the elevator pitch on what it is that you're proposing to start.
Right. So I am looking to start a corporation or a company that offers customized diversity services for my clients in the areas of the 4 protected groups in Canada, that being, women in leadership and technical, Indigenous peoples, visible minorities, and people with disabilities.
Okay. So now let's try to learn a little bit about you. Tell us about yourself, your background, your cultural heritage, your schooling, your experience.
Sure. So I am Cree. I'm a Cree woman from Saskatchewan originally. My community is the Kwakatoos First Nation. I became inspired to do this type of work in my career, being a woman, an Indigenous woman that experienced barriers to equal opportunity, whether that was in employment, society, career development, etc. So this really motivated me to ensure that other Canadians with diverse backgrounds, perhaps I could bridge some of those gaps, make it easier for future generations to pursue their dreams and help eliminate some of those barriers. I also have 10 years or almost 20 years total experience in diversity and employment, and experience developing innovative strategies and programs to ensure that diverse organizations happen, that inclusive workplaces are in place, and that it's better for future Canadians to have equitable employment and opportunity in Canada.
Yeah. Now you've been doing this, working for other people in the past. So what made you want to take the big jump into entrepreneurship?
Right. Well, there was a downturn in the oil and gas industry here in Alberta, although I had been contemplating it for a number of years now. So I decided to finally do it. I mean, we only live once in this life, and I'm very passionate about my work. So to continue to make change, I felt that I needed to do that on my own to allow me the opportunity to have a broader client base and the ability to deliver authentic and customized services.
So tell me, in your family, are there entrepreneur role models?
Yeah, so I do have some nephews and some cousins that do have their own businesses. One has a restoration, I believe, and renovations company. Another owns a flooring company. I do have, although, multiple friends here in Alberta that have their own businesses. And I was fortunate enough to work with another lady who was quite successful in Alberta for a number of years, and she's also my mentor as well, and she's an Indigenous woman.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So without going into too far into your finances, may I ask, as an entrepreneur, would you be in a position to reinvest every penny earned back into the business for the next, say, 12 to 18 months?
I am somewhat in that position. I don't know that I could go a full 18 months, but 8 months to a year, most definitely. I do have a source of income from my former employer for that time period. So I am able to reinvest at this time.
So tell me, what type of thinker are you? Are you an in box or outside box or no box or whatever type thinker?
Right. So I would say that I'm definitely an outside the box thinker. In fact, I quite often didn't fit in boxes very well at all. So An example of that would be my current employer. When I started doing the diversity work for them, they really wanted, I thought that we really needed to get some, and it was a global organization, so we really needed to get some country-specific visual marketing to improve our brand and our reputation, to start recruiting people from the diverse organizations. So what I did was design an external brand strategy that was really outside of their global conventional methods, but was needed to target that demographic here in Canada. So I was able to do that and think outside the box while still maintaining those global guidelines. So I'm definitely very much a creative thinker. I think there is a solution to most no's, and no is actually on if you read it backwards.
So when you're thinking outside the box like that, how do you deal with goals and as well as with challenges?
Well, you have to understand what the challenge is first, and what the risk or the concern is in that challenge, and recognize that. And sometimes it's a very valid concern. Sometimes there is another way to work around it, or to still obtain your goal without affecting that risk.
And how do you deal with unforeseen circumstances?
Well, you deal in the moment, absolutely, in the best way that you can. If I was to give you an example of that, so I was heading to do an information session at a Native Student Center university, and en route on the plane, we were notified that there was going to be some protesters outside the student center, and so how I dealt with that was, because I am Indigenous, I felt quite confident that it wouldn't be a violent or, it was a peaceful, organization. So I went in and I just had a talk with the people and, explained why I was there. And that was to gain meaningful employment for our people, and, answered questions that they had regarding their concerns and their risks. And they actually ended up joining us for lunch that day. So.
Great. It's not uncommon, and I'm sure that your friend, your mentor can tell you that it's not uncommon to spend a lot of hours at work as an entrepreneur, a lot more than often when you're an employee. So how do you feel about that? And foremost, how do you do you propose to manage the life and business needs balance?
Right. So for one thing, my children are grown, so I do have more flexibility as from my home life concern. And again, the work that I do is very, I'm very passionate about it, so I enjoy it. So when I do this type of work, sometimes I get lost in the time myself. I do realize that you have to put a lot of more effort and work in the beginning to any business. I'm willing to do that. I don't mind doing that. And the flexibility of having your own business is that you don't have to work 9 to 5 if you don't wish to. You can work in the evening or the weekend, and I certainly don't mind doing that. In fact, I had to do that quite a bit with my prior employer as well. So I don't see it as an issue for myself.
Okay. So why don't you give me a couple of examples of how you've remained committed to a tough task or an idea in the past?
Right. So I can give you an example of my prior employer. So I had to design a strategy to hire people with disabilities. Now, working for a large global organization, of course, there's a lot of legal concerns, and so we had to do a lot of engagement meetings with the corporate lawyers, and just understanding what exactly were their legal concerns and how would that relate to the strategy or the processes that we wanted to implement. And we were able to do that in a safe, effective way, gathering some research, right, from other competitors and how they were doing things, as well as letting them know that this is the risk, this is the legislation, and just giving them more information. So that was a bit challenging, but we were able to implement the strategy. So
I see it. You're a creative and a person that takes a lot of initiatives. But how do you encourage other people around you to also take initiative? How do you see that?
So what I've done in the past is educate or influence in a way that is positive. Also making it relatable. So an example, if you have a hiring manager who's an engineer, they have a business to run and a bottom line to meet. How will diversity affect their bottom line? How will diversity improve their business operations? As an example. So you have to, or also people often have their own personal experiences. Experiential learning is very effective in that, you might have a person with a disability in your family, your wife might be Indigenous, so there's always a personal contact that you can make as well.
Could you explain where the ROI can be in diversity?
Well, again, that can vary depending on the industry or the client. For communities, the return on investment definitely is whatever the program. So more employed people, more highly educated members from the community. For corporations, a diverse workforce have always been known to increase the bottom line, brings in more diversity of thought and ideas. So quite often innovative solutions, an increase in revenue and production. So those are some of the examples.
You seem to be a person that really goes after being a pioneer. Am I right?
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
So when you have to deal with setbacks, that hinders your progress, how do you deal with them?
Well, I am a pioneer. In fact, I led and developed one of the first Aboriginal employee networks in the oil and gas industry here in Calgary. There are quite a number existing now, but we were the pioneers in doing that. If there is setbacks happen, an example would be change in managers or change in leadership, where you sort of have to go forth and do it all again, right, to implement and make that change. But as long as you're continuing to influence, I think, and continuing to educate and make that change, it's worth it.
Makes you so self-confident?
My knowledge, my experience, and personal experience, I think, makes me very confident. And also the results and the change that I've been able to impact and implement with not only companies, but organizations and peers across Canada.
What's your tolerance with ambiguity?
I think that is just temporary. I think once a person learns more or is exposed more or has an experience more, that can change.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So while you're trying to clarify the ambiguity in order to be able to work with it, how far can you tolerate the risk? I'm sorry, not risk, but the stress that is created by the uncertainty.
Right. So I tolerate that very well. It's very much part of the work that I do. Absolutely. And again, it's just having the understanding that people are as far as they are based on their own personal experiences, their own personal knowledge. And quite often, if you understand that and you listen and you seek to understand and seek to listen, then you can have a good conversation or an impactful conversation or learning that addresses that. So, yeah, that's part of the work that I do, and I don't mind that.
Okay. One last question, Deb. How important is the need to achieve for you?
The need to achieve for me is to make change. So that when you say need to achieve, that's what it means to me. And that is very important to me. I mean, it's definitely, one of the root causes of why I do the work that I do. To make change.
So you've just opened yourself to another question. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's all right.
If you're going to make change influences people's surrounding you or subject to the change. How do you deal with that resistance to change that we encounter from time to time?
Right. So you're not going to change everybody, definitely, that's going to be the case. But quite often in my experience, even if someone is resistant to change, when they have a little more clear understanding about it, they're more open to future learning. So knowing that you're not going to change everybody is okay. If you change or you influence, 5 out of 10 people, that's a win. It's 5 more people that didn't have that awareness before. So
on that positive note, I will have to say thank you.
You're welcome.
Today I was with Deb Green. Deb is a Blueprint for Success intern. She is looking to start a new company called Corporate Cree Consulting, and that will be in diversity. And we will hear from Deb again in the future, because we will be doing a few more panel discussions on various topics that are important to Deb. On that, thank you very kindly. Goodbye.
Thank you very much.